What up, everyone? Back with another video. This time around we have a review, something we haven't gotten in quite a while because there hasn't been too much worth reviewing. Not that things aren't good, but I only like to review things if there's something to talk about. There are good things and there are bad things, but if that's all I have to say about it, probably not going to review it. So this is an example of something where there's a lot to talk about. And now, normally when I do reviews, it's on brand new products, brand new companies, new characters, things like that. This is going to be a little bit different because this is an existing company with an existing character of a model that's already been done. So this series is essentially kind of a remake in the sense that it's characters that already existed, that already had figures, that are just being redone by that same company. So normally, I just judge things on a regular scale, but this one in particular is going to be judged heavily on its previous incarnations. So it's going to be compared very side by side with previous incarnations of that figure, and the rating and the score I give is going to be heavily influenced by that. So keep that in mind for the review. Now, the figure we have right here, McFarlane Toys Spawn. This is the Gunslinger Spawn, but this review is going to be kind of for the entire line because all the things I'm saying apply to the rest of the figures as well. So it's going to be an overall review of that series of the newest Spawn released figures. This just happens to be the only one I got, but I was going to get them all and do a review of them, but really wasn't necessary to buy the whole set to show you each individual one and compare them side by side with older figures. I think comparing one side by side will get the point across just fine. So let's get right into it. As always, I give 4 scores: concept and design, execution, price, and value. I'll break down what each of those mean when we get to it. First, the concept and design. The design of it, the concept of it. If you were pitching this figure to someone without having anything actually there, what would it look like, what the idea is, how creative it is, so on and so forth. For this, I'm giving it a 6 out of 10. I do like it. Love me some Spawn, and I love Gunslinger Spawn. He's really badass. He just looks really cool. So I like that, but there's not a lot of design to it in the sense that it's not like they created the character just for this figure. It's always based on comic book designs. The original Gunslinger Spawn was from issue 119, and it's an interior page where they essentially just recreated that exact thing in a 3D model. This one is similar to in the sense that you can see on the side here the picture they used for reference, but it's not an exact recreation. Like, they didn't create the exact pose, it's just that basic design. So there wasn't a ton of creativity to it, but still, I just like the design of him. In the comic, it's very well designed. He just looks really cool. So yeah, there's not too much more to say past that. It's a cool design, but it's not super creative, and it's pretty basic when you look straight at it. So if you look at this, there's nothing super creative about his stance or his pose or anything like that. It's just very standard action figure. And this is something I hated about Funko for the longest time. Well, the Pop figures, they were all in the exact same pose. They were just that straight arm, straight leg pose, and it's like, it looks so stupid. They all look so generic. And this is an example of that from McFarlane Toys, where it's just very generic looking. All the previous Spawn figures had a really cool action pose. Gunslinger Spawn especially, he had a cool pose. There was something different about it. It wasn't just an action figure with a different skin on it. It was different because it had different moving parts, it had different action poses, all the things were different. This is just very standard action figure, straight on, nothing special about it. So I liked it, that's why I got a 6, but nothing super creative, so it didn't get much higher score than that. Now on to the execution, and that is how well it's executed, the actual thing we're looking at right here. So how well the design came out in the sculpt, how well the sculpt is, how well the paint job is, things like that. So I've lumped sculpt and paint job into one score. I used to do them separately, and this is one of the occasions I wish I had done them separately because they're so different. So this one's only going to get a 4 out of 10 because the sculpt on this is pretty decent. It's not immaculate, but it's decently done. If you get close in there, you can see a lot of texture and a lot of design, but most of the texture in this figure is completely lost because of the paint job, or lack thereof. And I think this is a huge critical thing they're missing out on by just not adding more paint to the figure. I get that it costs more. I'm assuming that's the reason. I can't imagine any other reason why. It's just the cost of painting each individual thing. It costs more money, but it's worth it because there is, if you get close to it, you can see a lot of texture, and if they put some paint into it, you'd see that. And I'm going back to this original Gunslinger Spawn and all the Spawn figures that I have. His cape is red, But it's not just red. It's not like they just 3D printed a red cape and slapped it on there. There's still paint to it. There's either some red paint on it, or there's black paint underneath with red paint over that. And what that does, the black paint gets into all the creases and all the lines, so now you can see it. Now you don't have to go up there and actually feel with your thumbs. You can see it from a distance because the paint gets in all those creases. So now there's black paint and there's red paint, even though it's just a red cape. You have to give those little indentations some paint in there to show the shadow, because it's obviously not a real cape, so they have to give that paint texture to it. The same with the body, the same with the pants, things like that. It's hard to tell what's going on there because it's all lost. Even though they sculpted it really well, there's no paint to show that definition. So huge missed opportunity, and that's what I have to say about all of McFarlane's recent figures. The same thing, very much lacking in paint. Recently, McFarlane has been doing DC figures, which is super weird, by the way. You own your own comic company, you have your own characters. Why are you doing DC? That's super weird. And honestly, a lot of the DC ones look better than the Spawn ones, which is also weird. But even still, even the best ones there are still lacking in a lot of paint. I've seen some that look really well, that they've spent the extra money on and put the extra paint on, and they look really great. You can definitely tell the difference. But most of them, same situation. A lack of paint completely loses that sculpt, all that definition just gone because there's no paint to back it up. So that's why it gets a 4 out of 10. This would have been a million times better if they spent that little bit of extra money to show that definition, but now the sculpt is pretty much pointless. It's lost because you can't see it. And there's little things like his lapel, I guess, the part that folds over on his jacket. In the old figure, it was an actual like rubber piece that you could move it around like a real jacket. This one, it's not so much. That part of it's just kind of pasted down, and it's just barely etched in there. So one side of it you can kind of see, the other side you can barely see. It's just kind of barely etched in there, and they should have made it separate or should have added some paint. Again, so many things they could have done that they didn't do, and I think it's a huge missed opportunity just to save a couple cents here and there, and I'm very disappointed about that. Now on to the price. I'm giving this a 7 out of 10 because I think it's pretty reasonably priced. It's not amazingly priced, but it's reasonable. This one, which by the way is supposedly a Target exclusive, but it doesn't have any sticker, so I feel like I was misinformed because they almost always put a Target sticker if it's exclusive. So someone in the comments will have to let me know if you've seen this elsewhere. I got mine at Target, but I haven't seen it online on any website, so let me know if anyone's picked it up anywhere but Target. Supposedly supposed to be Target exclusive, but I don't know. But anyway, this was $24.99, and that's reasonable. And I'm not sure if all of them are that priced. I think they're different prices. So the deluxe ones that are a lot bigger, they're really big characters, those are $40, and I think some of the smaller ones are $20. But again, I could be wrong on that, so right around that price range. Because honestly, I think 25's a little high. I think 20's reasonable. I think they should go for that $19.99 price range. Obviously, way more than they used to cost back in the day, but that was 20, 25 years ago, so not surprising at all if they cost that. And I think that's pretty in line with everything. Like, you see the Marvel action figures lined up here, the Spider-Man ones and the Avengers and X-Men. Those are right around $20, and those are just Hasbro, the Marvel Legends and things like that. So I think that's the standard for high-quality action figures, where you're not going like Hot Toys that are super detailed. It's still just an action figure, but it's like a little bit higher quality than the kiddie toys. So I think $20 is pretty much the standard. So if they all end up being $25, okay, not crazy unreasonable, more than I'd like to pay, but that'll do. And the bigger ones are $40, and it's like, that's kind of pushing it. That's a little bit much, to the point where I might not get those ones, but again, not crazy price. It's still acceptable. That's why it gets a 7 out of 10. Now on to the value. Different than the price. Price is what it costs. Value is what it's worth and what it's going to be worth. Basically, the collectability is a better way I should say it. Not value, collectability. So the collectability score is only a 4. And that's because McFarlane stuff just so rarely, I wouldn't say doesn't, but so rarely increases in value. And I think so many people are investing heavily into this, just like they did with the Kickstarter Spawn. A lot of people bought that and flipped it for a huge profit, which, great, but that was a specific incident, and I think a lot of people didn't know about that, me included, and really wanted it, would have got the Kickstarter, but just wasn't aware it was there, so I had to pay out the ass for it. That was an isolated incident. Whereas these figures, people saw that going for a high price. I think people bought these up like crazy and are trying to flip them, and it's just not going to work. If this ends up actually being a Target exclusive, that may be the one exception. That's something where you probably could flip it, because if it's exclusive, it's hard to get, and I'm not sure how many Target made. But other than that, I can't see them going up in value at all for a very long time. And I keep telling everyone, all the pre-orders sold out. Don't worry about it. You're going to have so many chances to get it. This one at Target, if it was Target exclusive, not hard to get at all. I wasn't even looking for it. Just walked in and there were a bunch of them on the shelf. I was like, oh, I'm here. Might as well pick this up while I'm buying my beer and my Doritos. Like, yeah, I'll grab a Spawn while I'm here. No big deal. So it just wasn't difficult at all to buy, and that's the reason they don't go up in value. Even back to the original Spawn figures, which are so much better. They just made millions of them, millions and millions and millions, and flooded the market. But it was so popular it didn't matter. They still got all bought up, but they didn't increase in value because so many of them exist out there. And I guarantee you the exact same thing is going to happen here. McFarlane put no limit on these figures. There's no limited run, there's no exclusive limit or a number or anything like that. So if they sell out, they're just going to make more. When Target sells out, which I'm sure they did because they didn't have that many, they're just going to order more. And when they sell it again, they're going to order again, and so on and so forth until it drives the price down to nothing. So I'm sure people are watching this saying, well, I saw them listed on eBay for this price. It's like, that's great. One, doesn't mean it's selling for that much, and two, it's still very early on. So if you got one very early, yeah, you probably could sell it for a high price. And the people that paid that, I'm sorry, because it's just not going to be worth that. The price will come down over time because they're just going to keep restocking these and keep filling them out. I'll just reiterate, the Target exclusive could be the one exception depending on how many Target ordered. It could be. I don't think it will, but it could be. The rest of them, I feel like you're just going to be able to get everywhere. Anywhere that there's a toy store, Target, anywhere that sells toys, I feel like they're just going to have them and they're not going to sell. And I feel like they're going to go on clearance because they made so many and ordered so many, and there's just not enough people in the world to buy them all. So overall, with all things considered, that brings the overall score to a 5.5, or 5.25, I'm sorry. And that's my overall opinion of it. It's just barely worth it. So let me be very clear here. I am a huge Spawn fan. I am a huge McFarlane fan. McFarlane is my all-time favorite artist. Spawn is my all-time favorite character, and nothing will ever change that. Both of them are immaculate. But the reason the scores are so low is because McFarlane's not living up to the standard. His own standard, a standard set by McFarlane himself. Back in the day, he wanted to break the mold on toys, and he did. So the original line of Spawn figures were all action figures. They were very toy-based. They were for kids, and I was a kid, so that worked out. As time went on, they evolved. As we grew up, so did they. They became more detailed. They became more articulate sometimes, and a lot of them, they kind of moved away from the action figure thing and made them more like statues. And that's what I liked about them. That as a young kid or a teenager, I could afford to buy things that look statue quality for the same price as regular like X-Men action figures. That was amazing. But now all of a sudden it seems like they're taking steps backward. Now they're going back to the original action figure thing, making a lot of articulation and stuff like that, which is fine, but I don't think that's a smart move. Because honestly, how many people watching this video, you can sound off in the comments, how many people that bought this figure are actually playing with it? And how many people are just getting it to collect it? They put it in this window display box, and they usually do that so you don't have to play with it. So you don't have to take it out of the box to put it on display. You can keep it in the box and have the full display of it right there. So I don't think it's smart for them to be going the fully posable action figure route. I think they should go back to the more statuesque things where they're maybe not as posable, but it looks like an actual piece of art. And then it'll totally be worth that $25 and $30, $40, even more than that, because companies like Kotobukiya and things like that are making those statue ones and charging out the ass for it. So if McFarlane went back to that and added some paint and made it more like a posed statue, they could charge way more and sell way more, and I would buy them all. Whereas these figures, I think I'm going to get Gunslinger, and that's it. Even though he's my favorite character by my favorite creator, the quality has dipped so unbelievably much that I don't even think it's worth spending $20 on each of these figures, which is such a disappointment. And that's why I've been going back and collecting the old action figures, which are just recently gaining some value. Just recently, 25 years later, are just recently going up in value. But still, you can get a lot of them at a pretty cheap price, some of them at their original price. So those are just immaculate. Those are so nice. Nice paint jobs, nice sculpts. And they're out of the box, but they're in one position. They're not posable. And this is just, I don't know. I wouldn't want to put this on display if it was out of the box because it just looks goofy. I don't even know if he can stand up on his own. He has a little stand in there, but the pose, there's just, ugh. And going back to the picture on the side, there's so many things that looked cool in the picture that just don't exist here. Like, for example, he has a little chain going across right there. In the action figure, it's just a line. It's literally just a line, a silver line. Like, why couldn't they put a chain? Why did they cheap out on that? That's so weird. And a bunch of other things, like they put paint on the guns to make them look silver. Great. But why not anywhere else? There's like parts of his hand right here that have some points on it that aren't in the picture that are just like brown. And it's like, well, what is that? Are those metal spikes? Does he have like a wood claw? Like, what is that? I don't know because there's no paint on there. So I don't know. It's overall just a supreme letdown, and I'm so disappointed. I hope that people at McFarlane are hearing this, and I hope they go back to their old ways. Technology has moved so far in the past 25 years, quarter of a century, so there's no reason that the quality should be lower than it was before. It seems like they're going all the way back to the original series and making them that quality. So I don't know if this is just part of the game plan. Maybe that McFarlane was going bankrupt and they need to start from square one, build up some capital, and then go higher. That could be the case. Maybe that's why they did the Kickstarter, because they had no money, and that turned out really nice. So maybe, hopefully, these figures sell out, they get more money, they get more quality, and they can get back up to the standard they used to have. That is my hope, and that is my dream, because I'm looking at the original Gunslinger right here, and he looks amazing. He just has even a cool pose. He barely has any moving parts, but he just looks really badass. Everything about him is amazing. To this day, 30 years ago, this figure is immaculate, and this only cost 30 bucks back in the day. And then I look to my right, and I see this, and I'm like, this looks goofy. This looks like a Happy Meal toy, where there's just a lack of detail, and a lack of paint, and a lack of this, and a lack of that, and just such a bummer. So I got one, because I wanted to look for sure, and look for myself to see the quality of it, so I could give you an honest review. So let me know your thoughts in the comments. Did you like this figure? Do you like the original figures better? If you have both Gunslinger Spawns, please do me a favor, put them side by side and really look at each one. And can you honestly tell me, like, oh yeah, quality is exactly the same, the new one's even better? I can almost guarantee that's not the case. But either way, let me know your thoughts in the comments. And if I'm wrong, if there are some other figures in this series that are much better, please let me know. I'd love to know. And let me know if you got them at a different price. Let me know if it was hard to get. Let me know if that was exclusive. All those things. I want to know all the information I can, so please share your stories in the comments. Other than that, thank you for watching and supporting. I'll see you on the next video. Love you all. Peace.